This week on Buffering, we are talking about how nobody wakes up excited about their internet plan, except maybe Gabe and I, or even post an unboxing video of their router, yet some brands have cracked the code on making products people genuinely love. Gabe, there's been a lot of tech news over the past couple of weeks that we should probably catch up on. Everything from our favorite brands, not Crumble, sadly, but Rivian, Apple, they've had some new product announcements. Apple's been on a roll lately. They've had multiple. And I think we should talk about that a little bit today and also talk about what that means for creating an experience that helps you win in a crowded market.
Agreed. And I'm excited to talk about this today, Zach, because I I feel like we don't necessarily know the answer on some of these things. And as we were getting ready for this podcast, I was telling you that oftentimes we come in here and we have very strong, I feel like you and I both have strong opinions about things, and we're not shy about sharing our opinions. And we will talk about some of those today. But I, I think what's interesting is that on the Apple side, especially with some of the products that they're launching into market, it seems like a pretty big departure from the way that they've been doing business previously. And there obviously are reasons for this. And I'm excited to kind of talk through those reasons and think about how those could even be applied to the broadband service provider space based on how we see this being positive or negative for this company. And then I know you're just excited to talk about Rivian because it's all what you want to talk about all the time. So that's going to be a fun conversation for sure.
I've been waiting for 2 years, and now I've got a roughly June delivery timeframe, or
Nice.
more information to come in June, which means November delivery probably, but we'll see how that ends up. But Gabe, on the Apple
I have
front,
a question for you actually, because I've been meaning to ask you this when it comes to Rivian. How I know they've sent you some emails in the past, and we actually did a whole episode on a Rivian email, but you've been on this waiting list for a long time. Do you feel like they're doing a good job of nurturing you through this long time frame where you've been waiting for this vehicle to launch, and now I don't want to say it's here, but it's getting closer to being here? Like, what have those touch points actually been like?
I'm going to say they've been doing a bad job, but they've been doing a bad job because of how bad I want the vehicle, because of how good they've been doing. So I have the app, and the app doesn't do much in terms of marketing, but they do different email journeys. They've been pretty active on social media. They've been, for the past few months, like posting factory updates or things like this. So they're kind of quietly building that anticipation. But I also think, a lot of the folks following Rivian, myself included, you probably have a little bit more background about them as a company, or there's a reason you signed up to begin with. And after like their AI and autonomy day a couple months ago as well, I think they've continued to build on that excitement. And we've talked about their emails in the past. They just don't seem like marketing emails. We'll talk about this today, Gabe, for sure, but it's more of here's a product that fits your lifestyle. And I think they do a very good job at, that level of personalization of knowing who their audience is and how to speak to them, as opposed to, we're going to talk about this because I just got this email today. Got an email from Tesla today, and all it says is, your new Tesla is waiting. Well, that's news to me because I didn't buy one. And then under that, it just says, like, visit one of our showrooms on Friday, March 20th to view our available inventory and learn about full self-driving on a demo drive. I mean, I could do this any day of the week, and I'm not going to go to a showroom, number one. But it's a
pretty generic email.
Yeah, there's 2 sentences in it. And it says, our team of Tesla advisors will be available to answer any questions you may have. I don't have any questions, but Tesla's marketing is just so garbage compared to anything that Rivian is doing. And I know I say that, and like some Tesla stand on the podcast and be like, oh, he just likes Rivian. No, it's genuinely garbage from the Tesla side. And speaking of garbage, I mentioned last week on the podcast the ads I get in my Toyota. Gabe, that's helping Rivian out, because all I can think about right now is this app from Rivian that I'm just not going to have to deal with. Hopefully, getting an ad every time I get in my car.
Yeah, I know we're
totally
going to talk about
mad
this
now.
I know we're going to talk about this when we get to the Rivian section about their choices of what their kind of, I guess, infotainment thing is going to look like. So we can definitely circle back to that discussion.
Let's kick things off with Apple, though.
Yes, let's start with the Apple discussion. So, Zach, I I know you've been an Apple fan for a lot longer than I, and you've been in that ecosystem. But there was a very interesting recent announcement with a new product that they launched called the MacBook Neo,
I thought it was
and
going to be Vision Pro. Dang it, Gabe.
nope, they've gone back to their
Apple
roots.
Intelligence? Does the MacBook Neo have Apple Intelligence? Has anybody checked on this?
It's funny because I switched over from a Dell laptop to a Mac computer last year, and I've literally never used Apple Intelligence once on the computer, like at all.
Okay, I just went to Google and I typed in, does the MacBook Neo have, and it says have a camera, have a backlit keyboard, have a fan, have a touchscreen, have a screen protector. There's nothing about Apple Intelligence in there, so I
It's
am
not
going
even in
to
the top 10. That's
I'm going to
hilarious.
just let that one sit where it may.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Let's talk about the things that Apple does well, which is more hardware, Vision Pro aside, not so much the Apple Intelligence piece. But the reason we thought this was really interesting is it's really framed around a completely different type of MacBook versus what they've done previously, and it's a much lower entry point from a cost perspective than any product they've ever had, like significantly lower. I think the standard price starts at $599. And if you're a student, I want to say it's $499. Zach, keep me honest on that. But again, much, much lower price. And what I think is interesting about this, and this is where we can kind of hopefully have this debate, Zach, is Apple has always been a premium product. It's been something that's been aspirational, and therefore they have been able to keep this higher price point for their phones, for their tablets, for their computers than a generic product that you can go out a Chromebook or an Android device or whatever. So I don't know. I'm very curious to hear your perspective on why you thought they did this and what this means for their business going forward as they're entering kind of a different place in the market.
Yeah, that's a good question, Gabe. And I mentioned this to you in the past, but prior to Calix, this is in college and high school even. I worked for a school district, and we would deploy. We started deploying iPads. That was their kind of first deployment, and then as technology evolves, we ended up with Google Education or Google Workspace, whatever they call that now. And we ended up deploying Chromebooks in many cases. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time, the laptop being able to use tools like Google Docs. I'm trying not to do this without laughing. I'm telling people about Google Docs and Google Slides and Google Sheets here, but that
Yeah.
was the education use case. And the Chromebooks, I want to say we were getting Chromebooks for like $199. They were very
They're
cheap.
incredibly cheap.
The product itself, I'm saying cheap, and I'm not saying inexpensive. It was cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And the build quality shows. We replaced many of those. But I think with Apple, I see them kind of entering in that education ecosystem a little bit earlier than they have in the past. You mentioned, I know, like my siblings, when they go to college, they might get like the MacBook Air, which was like $1,000 or $999. I didn't actually realize the Neo was only $599 or $499 with the education discount. That's insane. But I tend to go on the MacBook Pro side of the house, given how I use my laptop as well. But I think Apple's kind of noticed that, and I think we see this in the broadband space, is not everyone needs 1 gig, 2 gig, 5 gig, 8 gig internet. You're not going to use even
Mm-hmm.
1 gig. And I think Apple knows this as well from the hardware side. And they were able to take one of their iPhone processors from a couple of years ago. I can't remember the exact chip. Is it the A18 Pro? And build that into a MacBook, lower that price point down. They removed some features, like the backlit keyboard, I think I mentioned. They kind of, made it a less expensive product. But overall, it's the same, Apple software. It's the same Apple Intelligence that consumers have loved from Apple for years. And now they're
Mm-hmm.
bringing that down in price, I think, to mass market this to maybe a younger demographic, a younger generation as well. But I think it's going to be a lot more attractive. I mean, I think of my grandparents even. Like, this would have been a perfect, just like, hey, here's a cheap laptop that does exactly what you need. And it
I
made me
just
think,
had.
Gabe.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, it made me think. Like, so I was on YouTube. I was watching like the tech reviews of this video or this laptop, And I thought, okay, well, if I'm watching this video, it's probably not a product for me, right? But I'm curious, I'm interested. But I thought about it. I thought, okay, like outside of some video editing or like some Xcode I do, like it would be a perfect product for me. Like
Hmm.
I see this laptop and I think, okay, like I never use my iPad, like, but I like the portability of the iPad. Like, would this product, replace that? If only it had a touchscreen, of course. But I really think they're expanding into a new market and they're building on top of that Apple experience that we already have come to expect from them.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. It's funny you say about for your grandparents when buying a laptop for your grandparents. I just had to buy a new laptop for my wife. Hers finally took a dump and I had to get a new one. And if it wasn't, she's a PC person, she's never been a Mac person, and she hates technology. So I had to stay in the PC ecosystem. But if I was able to convince her to move to a Mac, I think the Neo would have been a really good choice for her because, like you said, it does all of the things that she needs it to do. She's not, editing videos or, creating software or anything like that. So it's kind of purpose built for, those kind of baseline use cases. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't think this is a question that's going to be answered immediately. Obviously, as you said, they're trying to enter a new market. They're trying to potentially get into more of that education market to get people locked in, earlier. The one piece that does seem very clear and will be beneficial for them longer term is, we've talked about this before, Zach, but services and services revenue specifically is a massively growing portion of Apple's top line revenue, but even more so of their profit. It's hugely profitable for them. I forget the exact number. I know we looked it up at one point. I
Well,
want
keep
to
in
say
mind
it's
their
like
services
76.
revenue. I mean, their service revenue alone is more than their Mac, iPad, wearables, and am I missing a category in there? Revenue
Yeah,
combined.
Apple, the Vision Pro. Come on. No, you're right. It is.
Is that even sold like outside
I
of
don't think so.
eBay,
I'm pretty sure they've stopped selling it.
Facebook Marketplace?
Yeah, but no, you're right. Services is the second biggest revenue line behind iPhone. It is huge and it's highly, highly profitable. I want to say the gross margin's like high 70s, maybe even low 80s. It's crazy, crazy high margin. So if they get people into that ecosystem early, they can sell them services. The other thing I was talking to you about before we started recording was one of the things that Apple has really been smart about is the upgrade path to new technology. When you buy a new iPhone, it is so easy now to set up that new iPhone from your current iPhone. You basically just put them directly next to each other and it transfers everything over from one phone to the next. The Macs are the same way, iPads the same way. So if you get into that ecosystem where you get the Neo and then in 2 or 3 years, you have a little bit more disposable income and you want to upgrade to an Air or a Pro. I have the Air, by the way, and I freaking love that thing. It's such a solid machine. But now all of a sudden you're spending more money and it makes it really easy for customers to upgrade. I think that is, as we bring it back to the broadband space, that is an area where broadband service providers could be thinking more about what is the cost of switching from maybe another provider to you as the provider. Like, how do you make that process super easy? And Apple obviously has made it really, really easy to do that. I think there's some lessons that could be learned there from broadband service providers from Apple to make it easier to do that switch, whether it's education, whether it's actually building some technology, to make it easier for people. But there's a good opportunity there to make that switching part really easy. So anyway, sorry for the tangent, but that
Gabe,
occurred to me.
Let's take a look at the marketing angle here. So,
I love this. Oh my gosh, are we doing a screen share on the podcast? Holy crap,
we're
we've
gonna
never
do
done
this live.
before.
We're going all out with this production.
All right, I love it.
I'm gonna have to do this
Okay.
the Rivian segment.
I'm so excited about this, Zach. This is amazing. We've never done this before, actually. I don't think we've ever done a screen share.
The people who are listening on like audio only apps right now are so. What's going on?
They're so confused. Yeah, you got to go watch this on video so you can see this.
If they can't see this, we could make up whatever we want right now, and no one would ever know. But let's take a look at the MacBook website. Gabe, as I walk through this, I'm going to come back to you at the end. I'm going to ask you what you didn't see. So here we are. Hello, Neo. It says you have this nice image here. Then I get the highlights. So I have the color options.
Cool
I can scroll
color.
through this.
Well, and just to go to that really quick. So the color options, that pink, that yellow, like definitely targeted at a younger demo. And then when you
Yeah.
click over there to the next picture, we were talking about the education use case. It's literally just a bunch of students sitting in a classroom.
Yeah. And the title on this is fast for all your everyday tasks. Great. If I go to the next pane now, I get some information about the screen, the colors again. I go back to this one was unexpected, but Apple Intelligence built
There
right
it is.
smarter than smart. I don't know what that means, but as I scroll through here, Gabe, magically pairs with your iPhone to unlock even more features. They're doing a little call out here with Microsoft PowerPoint, Slack, Excel. I can scroll through here. Love at first Mac. So I think we are targeting that. This is my first Apple product demographic a little bit. But Gabe, what are you still not seeing as I scroll down through this?
The tech specs.
Exactly. I mean, we're almost to the bottom of the page here now, and it's the muscle for your hustle. And it's, again, here's that education use case. I can keep scrolling, but I haven't seen anything. I mean, here's some tech specs on the screen.
Yeah,
but
a little bit on
I
the
still,
screen.
I don't know what the processor is on this. I don't know what the RAM is. We're almost to the bottom. We're talking about privacy, better together. I'm just going to click on the tech specs tab, and now I have them. It's there for, me who wants to know that this now has an A18 Pro chip, but they
So
did not
you know how I know
lead.
you're like so nerdy about this stuff, Zach, is that you actually said correctly that it was the A18 chip, and that's exactly what it is. I'm impressed that you knew
Well,
that.
the only reason I know that is because I saw a comment on YouTube and was like just saying this, but like I wouldn't use the MacBook Neo as like my main editor, but I could edit video on my A18 iPhone 2 years ago, whichever iPhone that was, and
Mhm.
that's one thing. But hey, that's I think that's enough about the MacBook here. But the whole thing here is if you're a communication service provider, your competitors are racing on speed and price. And I think there's an opportunity here to be like Apple. I know there's an opportunity to be like Apple. Show up with the experience at an accessible value point.
Yep. Yeah, and this is where I struggle a little bit with what they're doing here, and why I was just curious to have this kind of debate or discussion is, again, we talk a lot, Zach, about not competing on speed and price. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the premium offer. I think there are some situations where I shouldn't say there's some situations. There are many situations, in almost every situation, where you will want to have a premium offer, like what Apple has with the MacBook Pro or some of their really premium products. There's a market for that, and you should absolutely be leveraging and targeting the right people for those offers and those services. But there also is that lower end of the market, and even though they've launched a cheap, quote unquote, product, they haven't leaned into the tech specs of why it's cheap. They've leaned in still, to your point, to the experience that you're going to get by being in the overall Apple ecosystem. So again, I'd be very curious to see how this shakes out over the next, it's probably going to be, honestly, a year or two before we really understand, is this something that is, potentially damaging from a brand perspective, where they have this quote unquote cheap product. And now they're seeing like the Chromebook, the cheap Chromebook that you were talking about earlier. Or is it just something that brings people into that ecosystem and then allows them to stack on premium services over time?
My take is it's going to be positive. I Apple doesn't, or historically they haven't shared exact numbers. Now they might share like insights and like their earnings calls into how different areas of their business are going. I don't expect them to come out and say, "Hey, we shipped 10 million, MacBook Neos." They might,
Yeah,
who knows?
agreed.
But I think we will learn more about this. Now, Apple aside, Gabe, let's talk about Rivian. And
Yes.
you know how excited I am about this, but they've 2 years ago they announced the R2, um, really as an extension of the R1 experience. So they have these luxury SUVs and pickups today. They have more hefty price tags than most consumers can afford. So they went out and they said, okay, well, how do we bring this down and make a mass market video? So or vehicle. So what they've done here, in terms of design and performance, is really built a product to inspire adventure. That it's all over their website as being an adventure vehicle. And I I've got to tell you, Gabe, I've been following Rivian for 5+ years now, and I genuinely do not know how many kilowatt hours their batteries are. I don't know the charging times or the specs there. But what I can tell you is I can picture myself, in one driving through the mountains or taking this vehicle off-roading in this experience that they keep talking to me about. And I think the cool thing here, and I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again, Gabe, now that we can now that we can do this.
Now that we've just
But
broken the seal on this, man, we're just going for it. I love it.
well, I'm
Let's do
always
it.
telling you, like, man, we gotta like figure out how to increase our podcast production quality, and now we can. But I think the big thing here, on Rivian's website here, inspire adventures of all kinds. I can scroll through here. I can see the vehicle.
Well, if you
Right
go
here.
if you go going back up to the top section in that hero area where it's showing all of the ways that you're going to get outside with the product.
Mhm.
It's there we go, same product
The
again, like
product.
we were with the McDonald's thing. But no, it's showing all of these places that you're going, all these adventures that you're going to go on with it. It's not leaning into the tech specs, to your point. It's what adventures are you going to have with this vehicle.
Yeah, and if I scroll down here, that's kind of exactly where I wanted to go next here is, R2 is designed for the adventurous here. And
Hmm.
you see
Design for the
dynamic
adventurous is just a great tagline.
they've done a great job, but here's they're speaking directly to pain points here. So driving or dynamic driving meets I can't speak. Dynamic driving fun meets go anywhere capability. So again, there's take this vehicle anywhere. Next to that, it's airy and spacious with best in class storage. I see a lot of people do like, oh, you can do like, 12 cubic feet of cargo. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Um, this
Such a
this makes
great
more
point.
sense. Yeah, this makes much more sense. And then the other thing I liked here too, any road,
Hmm.
anytime, find fun on pavement, and then take the trail less traveled. It's talking like directly to people who would take this SUV off the road, or it's talking to people who would, have different use cases for driving this. And the
Hmm.
last one here I want to call out here is suspension that adapts and reacts. I love saying that. And then in the fine print down below, it says, semi-active suspension. I don't
Hmm.
really know what semi-active suspension is, but I know what suspension that adapts and reacts implies. And then the drive modes, room for days, I mentioned that one, but they do a great job about talking about, the pain points that this vehicle is addressing, the
Hmm.
value behind it. And then all the way here at the bottom, now we have our tech specs. They didn't lead with
Hmm.
them. It's still there from an SEO, GEO perspective as well. But I think they've done a fantastic job here with marketing this vehicle.
Yeah, agreed. And was the bottom of that the actual screen that's going to be in the car, or was that
That
something
was,
different?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I want to come back to that because I want to talk about the decisions that they've made there. But yeah, man, completely agree with you. Again, they're leaning into, yes, they're creating a lower priced product, lower priced vehicle so that they can expand their market share. They've been selling what's a R1 or a R1 or the SUV is probably 70 grand, maybe 80 grand,
70 plus,
depending on
yeah.
which one you're going to buy. Yeah. I mean, that is a premium product that not a lot of people can afford. So how do we increase our market share? Well, we need to get something that's a little bit more approachable, very similar to what I think Apple's done with the Neo. So expanding that market share, building that brand more broadly, and I mean, Rivian's kind of ultimately potentially going to become a services company as well, where a lot of their revenue, and I would imagine high margin revenue, is going to come from the services that they're selling over the top of the vehicle as well, whether that's
Mhm.
self-driving services or infotainment services and these sorts of things. That's really where a lot of that high margin business is going to come from. That I think is the biggest difference between somebody like a Rivian and a Tesla versus the traditional car manufacturers. Is Rivian and Tesla think like tech companies, where they think about, how do I get the hardware in the customer's hand, and then how do I create monetization over the top of that, versus the Fords and other companies of the world that are just like, how do I make my $1,000 on the vehicle that I'm selling? It's a very different mindset for sure.
Definitely, definitely. Um, so again, we're very excited about Rivian. Maybe me more so than Gabe here.
I mean,
I've
you
been
do have
waiting,
one on
man.
order, but yes, so you're maybe a little more excited than me.
But yeah, I mean their headlines combined here, they have a great website, a great just experience across that website as well. I love how visual it is too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like
Agreed.
you really don't have to read that website. I mean, you mentioned like they gave the last kind of page on their website there where it was showing like the UI. I love being able to see that, and goes back to like something I said about Tesla back in the day, and this is positive. So Tesla stands, don't hate me for this one. But I said we're getting into this interesting period where I think people are more comfortable buying products buying vehicles without test driving them. That's something, Gabe, you probably wouldn't dream of or wouldn't think of in the past, right? But here we
Correct.
are. We have large populations where these vehicles come out, and Rivian's got a pretty well established brand. Tesla has a well established brand, but people are pretty comfortable going online, buying one, and then going and having that contactless pickup, even.
hmm Yeah, spending tens of thousands of dollars on something that they may not even necessarily touched with their hands, which feels kind of wild. Can we talk about the infotainment piece of this and their decision to build their own versus integrating Apple CarPlay? You mentioned this to me, and I didn't really realize this. So apparently, there was a decision that they made to say, you know what, we're not going to do Apple CarPlay. We're actually going to build our own infrastructure, or I don't want to say infrastructure is probably not the right word, but our own technology into the cars. Um, I think this is a bit of a
I have
risk.
so many thoughts on this, Gabe. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I'm curious to hear your perspective. What do you think? I mean, I know people love
This
CarPlay
this
and
is
it
my
integrates so
opinion.
well.
I like CarPlay, but I had the realization that I only like CarPlay because the Toyota UI and UX is so bad. You can say that about any vehicle. It's the
That's
only like
funny.
I had the realization. I was like, this is actually it's. I always use the word I probably shouldn't use. It's terrible, but um, when I think of like the Tesla, because when I was driving Teslas, I said I don't think about CarPlay because like it does everything I need it to do. You know, I could speak to my car, I could have it make phone calls. Right now, Siri is so bad it can't even make a text message in my car. Like it picks up like a little ding sound and says, "What would you like to say?" And it includes that in the message. I'm like, this is useless.
Yeah.
Um, but Rivian, like if it can send text messages, if it can make phone calls, I mean, look at the screenshot right there, Gabe, with the music built in. That's all
Yeah,
I need.
agreed.
At this point, it's doing everything CarPlay does, but better. Like I don't need any more integration in my opinion. Now, again, I'm gonna go back to reiterate the point I made early on is the reason I think people like CarPlay and Android Auto is because it's better than what we have today. But
hmm
as what we have today adapts and evolves, you know, in Rivian's case and Tesla's case, it I don't know if it becomes table stakes here, but what we have now is this nice UI UX that Rivian and their CEO even said, like, we want people to use this. Like, we don't want you to have to need this third party solution kind of thing. So,
hmm
in my opinion, CarPlay is good for replacing what we see in legacy auto manufacturers today and integrating that experience in. But, I mean, Gabe, I mean, you've seen this website now kind of cycle through. CarPlay doesn't compete with this. It really doesn't.
No, it
And
looks really good. It
yeah.
looks really good. And I told you this. I finally rode in a Rivian for the first time on the way to science camp. I caught a ride with one of my with another parent, and they have a Rivian, the R1 version of the SUV, and I was really impressed. I mean, it's a very high quality car. Felt super smooth as we were driving. We were in the car for like an hour. It was super comfy. As you said, that screen looks really good. Really intuitive. The other thing that she had told me was her kids very quickly realized that you can watch YouTube videos on the screen. So now when they're somewhere and they're we were somewhere the other day for a practice, and the kids ran to the car to immediately watch a couple of YouTube videos while her and I were chatting about something. So it's they've done some cool integrations from that perspective as well that make it exciting for all the members of the family, not just the parents who are actually driving the car. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. And I know it's a risk. It's a risk because they're spending a bunch of time, they're spending a bunch of resources. There's obviously probably frankly millions of dollars, if not tens of millions of dollars, that are going to go into the design and support of that. But now they have their own unique ecosystem that they've built in there, that they don't have to rely on. Hey, if Apple makes an update to CarPlay and people don't like it, well, then all of a sudden they get that negativity within the Rivian community
Okay.
because of that type of change. Oh,
Apple updating
am I
CarPlay.
just pissing you
Car
off?
Yeah, CarPlay hasn't updated. Like they introduced CarPlay Ultra like 5 years ago, and they released it to what Aston Martin. Like, yes, we're all driving around, taking advantage of
I've
Apple
got three
CarPlay
Aston
Ultra.
Martins in the garage. You don't have three Aston Martins in the garage? Come on.
I don't even have a garage. That's my Rivian. No, I'm just kidding. But I live in Wyoming. I have a heated garage. But um, I like I said, I think the big takeaway here for CSPs is um think about your subscribers' connected lifestyle. Think about how Rivian thought about the lifestyles of who's buying their products. You may not have the fastest product in town. I gotta stop saying product. You might not have the fastest in town, but find your space where you're not fighting on specs, right? You're going to ultimately lose to whoever has the deeper pockets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's spot on. And I think it goes back to the conversation we were having around Apple as well is, you know, they're probably not going to market aggressively a Neo product to you or to me because, you know, we are a little bit further down the path on, you know, on their ecosystem, as well as, you know, we're willing to pay a little bit more for a premium type of offer. Same thing from a CSP perspective. We shouldn't be marketing the exact same. We shouldn't be marketing the entry level service to everybody in our market where we could be getting premium, premium dollars and providing a premium experience. Again, you know, I'm so curious to see how this all shakes out. I would not call the Rivian R2 a cheap product by any stretch. It's still very much a premium solution. So they're still in that premium market. So it's a bit different than the Apple conversation we had earlier, but I do think it's similar in that they're looking to get more of a mass market adoption of the vehicles versus what they've been doing before, which is really, really that premium offer.
Yeah. So let's talk about, just de-specking your messaging here as we wrap up. We have kind of 5 main points here. I think the first thing we talk about often, audit your current messaging, review your hero copy, your email campaigns, sales scripts. How many times do you lead with speeds, price, infrastructure, and language? Again, we walk through the Apple website, we walk through the Rivian website. It's there, it's limited, I wouldn't say it's hidden, but it's like I said, it's not something they lead with. And just going off that Rivian example I just talked through, but identify your subscriber moments. What do your subscribers actually feel in their day? Is it frustration when kids aren't doing homework, relief when the work from home call doesn't drop, you know, pride when your when your internet just works seamlessly? And I think those are the moments that we should be marketing to.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
And
and
then
that leads into, oh, sorry, Zach. I was
no,
just
go
going to say
ahead.
that leads into building those experience forward personas. So it's not just the heavy users and light users, or even the remote worker. It's that remote worker, it's the gaming household, it's the family with kids. I mean, we've talked about these personas before, but each persona has a very different experience headline, much like what we saw with the Rivian when those headlines are very targeted to that adventurous persona. That's a very specific type of person that they're looking to market these solutions to. If we go back to the broadband example, if we go through the remote worker, the gamer, the family, none of those are just, I need a gig. That's not the thing that they're looking to do. They're looking to solve specific problems.
I've never seen I've never said I need 2 gig by 2 gig internet. What I have said is I work from home. What I have said is I upload, the best, podcast in the industry once a week. I with after the Super Bowl, I've been playing Madden and then some NCAA college football 26 because I
Nice.
got to get my fill there. But those are things that I say I do. Again, who are your subscriber? What are their moments? And then I think, Gabe, we talk about this quite often, building the experience forward personas. You don't have heavy users. You don't have light users. You have remote workers. You have households that game. You have families with kids. You don't have bronze, silver, and gold. You don't have fastest, fastest. Each
Oh my
persona has
gosh.
a different experience headline, and none of, yeah, everything you just said, take a lesson from Apple. What are we doing here?
You actually sent me a faster, fastest website this week, and I almost died. That
Oh
was
my
a
gosh.
real thing that
It
happened.
legitimately said fast, faster, fastest.
Yep.
I don't even know what the speeds were. I got so
I don't
distracted
either.
by the names.
Yeah, I got so distracted I didn't even look to see what the speeds were, but I absolutely died when you sent me the faster, fastest. That was great stuff.
There's just no brand identity. I couldn't even tell you whose
No.
website that was. I mean, it's such a bad example. Like Gabe, we joked months ago talking about the Olympic, the gold medals, the medal standard, and
hmm
that website was interesting. But not going down that path today. I think the last one here was just avoiding the utility trap.
hmm
And this one's very important. The minute your subscribers think of you as a utility, they will treat you like one. They will switch on price. They will complain about outages. There's no loyalty in a utility relationship. You need to be 2 things. You need to be both essential and beloved.
hmm Yeah, it's such a great point around if you, I hear this topic come up a lot in the conversations I have with customers, and I even hear marketers at companies succumbing to this trap of, well, now that internet is a commodity, or we work in a commoditized market. I always want to push back against that and say, well, why does it have to be? Why are we accepting that as the place that we are? Why can't we try and push to something better, to something, higher quality, right? To something higher value. We don't just have to accept that the services that we sell is a commodity if we're marketing it in a proper way. And I think that really, to your point, Zach, allows you to avoid that utility trap when you're getting out of that commoditized mindset.
Exactly, Gabe. So, I mean, takeaways here: lead with that experience and that feeling. Let the tech be the proof, but you don't need to lead with that. Going back to Apple, how did they make a $599 laptop feel magical? How did Rivian make a mid-sized electric vehicle feel like adventurous freedom? How are these companies doing that? And I think we're going to see more and more of this. Go to the GM website, go to the Toyota website, go to the Ford website, and then go to the Rivian website, then go to the Tesla website. How's it different? You're going to notice they're very different. And it's not because they're EVs. That is not why the websites are different. It's because they have a unique, or dare I say, better understanding of their customers. And I think the broadband providers who figure this out are going to be the ones who win their market for the next decade. So in 10 years, Gabe, we're going to have to come back and talk about what's new for the next decade. So what are you doing in March 2036?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna send you a calendar
no
invite
offense,
after
but
this
hopefully
call.
not this.
We have bigger,
Respectfully.
we have bigger problems, dude. Well, hey, Gabe. Well, if I've replaced you on the podcast with Gabe GPT as the co-host by then, actually, if I'm hosting this podcast by then, we'll have bigger problems. But appreciate it, Gabe. Great conversation here today. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into Buffering. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast app and to share it with your friends and colleagues. And for more insights and updates and Rivian news, be sure to connect with Gabe and I on LinkedIn.